Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ReluTech Podcast. I'm glad to be welcoming a few of my colleagues here today. We have Shanna Witt and Maisha Gonzalez. They are both from our PSM team here at ReluTech. They work with all of our good friends over at AWS, which is obviously a very close partner that we work with over here, and we've had a lot of conversations about that. In some of our recent podcasts, we had been mentioning reInvent because it was that time of the year. And we had a team get out to reInvent this year. And we plan to have a few conversations on the podcast about that. But as far as that goes, I wanted to welcome them onto the podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit today about reInvent and what it's like to have your first time at reInvent. So just to start things out, we can start with each of you. Can you give us a little bit, Maisha, starting with you, your background kind of here with ReluTech, how long you've been working with the PSM team, and what led to you going to reInvent this year?
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chris. My name is Maisha Gonzalez. I am a partner sales manager on the team that focuses mostly on the AWS partnerships and then other partners as well within the AWS ecosystem. I've been with ReluTech for almost 5.5 years. I started actually on the marketing team. I led all of the graphics and design for Catalyst Tech Ventures and all of the companies prior under the umbrella. And then I decided to make a shift into the sales org, specifically on the partner sales team about 3 years ago. And I'm probably 2.5, 3 years, and I've loved it so much ever since joining. Shanna joined shortly before I did, so we've been working together pretty much the entire time that I've been on the team. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm based out of Greenville, South Carolina, just moved from Atlanta. And yeah.
Awesome. And Shanna, let's hear your intro.
Thanks, Chris. So Shanna Witt here, partner sales manager. Maisha and I basically split the entire AWS partnership. Been with ReluTech for about 3 years now. Like Maisha said, we kind of joined the team at the same time. So we've been able to kind of work together and build this together, which has been awesome. I'm based in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm trying to think. But this was both of our first time at reInvent. So super excited to get here. I'll get on here and talk about it because it was a whirlwind. So excited to dig into it.
Yeah, and I'm excited too because we've had a few people at reInvent out in the past. It's often been folks in leadership roles here because it's important in the AWS community. But I do think this was probably the first time we had a really kind of coordinated team out there. And especially with you guys' roles here, like you mentioned, as a partner sales manager, you work very closely with AWS, where you're at their offices regularly. Even though we got Greenville and Kansas City here, we're seeing New York, DC, and any other AWS office you can imagine getting visited because we need to have these conversations. We need to understand how their organization's moving and how that affects how we're moving. That's really where reInvent becomes critical because it is somewhere where anything that's moving and shaking for the next year in AWS, it's probably going to be announced there. So I'll let one of you take it, whoever wants to throw their hand up first. Tell the audience, what is reInvent in a nutshell?
I'll take it. So reInvent in a nutshell is one of the largest tech conferences in the world, I'm assuming. I know there was a ton of international presence there as well, but it's a time where AWS is rolling out all of their newest products, all of their newest solutions. They're launching some of the new partner programs that they have. So really, it's a time for customers to come and really dig into and listen to keynote speakers and just really dig into all the new products that are getting released. I know Gen AI has been a huge topic this year, and especially going into this next year. I know there were a ton of announcements on that. And then from the partner side, this is a time where all of our customers are attending, all of AWSers are attending, all AWS leadership is attending as well. So really just a good time to network. And, I know travel has kind of slowed down since COVID, but this is a place where everybody can come together and knock out, 40 meetings in 3 days. So just a really cool time to go down. And I remember when Maisha and I first pulled up to the Venetian for the first time, I looked at her and I was like, this is it. This is where we are. And she's like, yeah, let's go. And so, we walk in.
It's a movie scene, right?
It's a movie scene, exactly. It's like The Hangover. But
minus a few details, but, same general vibe.
For sure. And we're like going down the escalator and I'm like my jaws drop because you just see just everybody. Like casino is just littered with people. They're having meetings, they're having conferences. Like it was just a whirlwind. So it was a really exciting time. Maisha, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think it was to kind of follow off what your question was, Chris, and bouncing off of what Shanna responded, it is just a time where AWS has the floor to just tell, customers and partners like everything that they've been working on behind the scenes and in such a fun location where, everybody's able to, work hard, party hard. And it was really cool to be able to jump from, restaurant or bar or just like any spot you can find at the Venetian to meet. Lots of coffee meetings, lots of drink meetings. So definitely a lot packed in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's something where, and you kind of talked about it, COVID made a big change, I think, in whatever industry you're in, whatever your conference environment is, huge shakeup because this was a regular part of most industries for a long time, the trade shows, right? And in the cloud world, this is the trade show. Like there are other cloud providers, they have their conferences, but AWS is still the largest public cloud company in the world. And to that end, the kind of interest that this type of event brings for customers who want to stay on top of cutting edge technology, it's huge. Us working in that space, us wanting to figure out how our workload's getting moved to the cloud, why our workload's going to the cloud, and where do we fit into that. That's why you guys have to have so many meetings. It's just one of those things where there's so much conversation about what AWS is doing and what customers are doing and where's the glue there. So you kind of mentioned customers going to reinvent, partners going to reinvent. Typically, what are some of the different, I mean, you mentioned the motivations a bit, but when a customer goes to reinvent, what are they typically looking to accomplish from it?
Yeah, I can jump in. So, kind of back to what we were saying, just trying to understand what AWS is coming out with. A lot of times customers are paired with their account manager at AWS. So it's a really great time for them to bond in person with their account manager and talk through a little more strategically with any of the announcements, what they're thinking for that company. And so it's really, really awesome to be able to see everybody kind of like we talked about. COVID was a time where everyone was kind of digital. I talked to so many customers and so many AWS account managers that were, telling me, hey, I've worked with this customer, or I've worked with this account manager for 3 to 6 years, and this is the first time I'm seeing them face to face. So I think that was super unique experience for them, and very, very valuable to be able to say, hey, like we're sitting here, we're finding like commonalities outside of just the conversations we have over Chime or Teams or Zoom or whatever, digitally.
Yeah, you create that kind of more social relationship there when you're in person, which is huge. And I think it's, to some extent, a bit of a narrowed focus for everyone who's there too. Like when I think about a customer who's there, a customer that we work with, well, their CTO went over to reInvent for the first time this year. He had a great time. It sounds like he thought it was really cool. Just he's very early in his AWS journey, so he's learning so many of these things that he can do in AWS. So naturally, as an engineer, his gears are spinning. He's excited. Yep. And he goes out somewhere like here where, the typical day-to-day turmoil of, hey, legal needs this. Hey, this, leadership needs a report on that. He's actually allowed to focus on the cloud and what he can do with it, and having kind of the guide of partners, AWS reps, et cetera. It's huge. And I think that's for a customer, that's one of the biggest benefits I've seen. They always come out of reInvent with like this fresh charge of how they're going to do things with AWS. Now for the partners, obviously they're looking to do more business, but how is that typically approached? Is this conversations with customers, AWS, both, mixed? How does that work?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a mixed conversation. I mean, customers come to, dig into and delve into what their digital transformation is going to look like. And they do that, by attending these keynotes and the conferences and the speakers. But there also have partners that are there who have rented out every single restaurant that you can imagine that's inside the Venetian. And they're all holding workshops and they're inviting customers to come in and try their new products and doing all the things. So it really just gives partners, customers the time to just come together and really just kind of evaluate like what the digital transformation looks like and where everybody can fit in individually into that process, which is really cool. I know Maisha and I had awesome conversations with both partners and customers and together, and it's just a really cool time, I think.
Yeah. And I'll bounce off of that too. So we're a really unique partner, right? Like we don't compete in the AWS space, in the AWS partner ecosystem at least. And so we're just complementary to all other partners. So really for Shanna and I and the broader team as well, there's three types of, audiences that we're meeting with, speaking with, and that is end user customers. So, all the customers that AWS invited and attended. We have AWS, reps, leaders, partner managers, anybody who was able to come from the AWS side. And then it was also other partners that we are collaborating with. We work with a lot of other SIs and ISV partners. And so it's really awesome to be able to see customers that we might have in common with another SI and then AWS as well. So it's like kind of like a tri-party approach on helping the customer with their digital transformation. So it was a lot of interaction with so many different types of audiences, but I think it was just so valuable for us to be able to work as a team under the AWS partner umbrella and really show the customers what we're able to do as a team.
Yeah, and what you mentioned there, because that's actually something I didn't ask, which is that we have a third contact that we look to talk to. A lot of these partners, they compete directly. Not everyone, they might be complementary in some ways depending on the services they provide. Like maybe you do migrations, you do analytics. Cool. Okay, we'll work together. Ours isn't really in a ballpark with anyone who's operating specifically in this cloud space. What we really try to focus on is how we can lower a lot of the financial burden of the physical environment that you're trying to move away from. So that you can make this cloud journey work. And we have actually some podcasts planned in the coming month to 2 months that are going to talk about a lot of these things. But to that end, we work with partners to actually accelerate the migrations they're doing for their customers. So they want to go sell a migration. They need our help to ensure that the financial elements behind the data center that already exists are worked out. So that's the third conversation for us. And to that end, if you are a partner who sees complementary skills with other partners, this is a good event to go to. Again, for anyone who's watching this podcast, we know it's not everyone who's a customer of ours or any of that, but everyone who's in this space has benefit from going to this because it's everyone who's important and does anything in this space rubbing shoulders with each other. And usually big things come out of it.
Absolutely.
Now, kind of for those people who are going to their first reInvent, let's break this into three groups. Just because we had that here for the customers, for an AWS rep maybe, or for a person from another partner. If it's your first time about to go to reInvent, what are some must-know kind of pieces of advice that you should go for, know before going to that?
We could probably both answer some. We have a lot of
a lot of takeaways.
It sounds like you had some reflection after the fact a little bit.
We did. Our feet definitely hurt. And I would say that's the number one thing across all three types of attendees. Comfy shoes. Ryan sent us a message before, Ryan Norton, our VP of Alliances, sent us a message before reInvent and was like, I'm not carrying you. Like, you better bring shoes. You better bring water.
You want to give you a weekend at Bernie's situation?
Yeah. And so Maisha and I were like, no, like, fashion over comfort, like it'll be fine. And mistakes were made, blisters were had. So definitely comfy shoes, I would say, is the number one thing that I would recommend. Get some insoles. If you have cute shoes, get some insoles for them or something like that.
A couple of things that I would say is I think more so on the AWS and partner side, since AWS account managers are kind of creating an itinerary for their customers. So they're the ones kind of in control of meeting times and like where you're meeting and all those types of things. I would say give yourself about a 30-minute buffer in between one meeting to another just to get to that destination, because a couple things, you might be at a completely different resort, just depending on availability. And then also it is overwhelming, even if you're going from one side of the Venetian to the other. Sometimes, like, my Apple Maps didn't properly show where this one place was. And so having to kind of lap around, ask people where certain places are might take a little bit of time. So that's something I think we could improve on ourselves and that we would give advice to. Another thing is everybody was using their LinkedIn QR code. So if that's something you use, or you have like a Popple card or anything that's like quick and easy when you're just meeting people kind of on a whim, I think that is really important.
I agree. And that's
for sure.
Is no problem with business cards. But if you're expecting someone to necessarily remember all the exact details of who you were, if you've connected with LinkedIn, people can see their recent new connections. You'll also have posts that will continue to probably talk about these things. Make the easy call there instead of printing 100 business cards, or do both.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, whichever works. Because I both of them were being handed out, but I will also say, I have T-Mobile service, and I did not have service inside any of the casinos the entire time. So
do you have a recommended provider?
I don't. No ads here, no plugs. But I would say, just piggybacking off of what Maisha said, like, keep your meetings in as close to the same places as possible, maybe outside of the conference or the exhibition halls and all of the things, just so you don't have to deal with not having service and not being able to meet up with people, because that happened. And so, follow-ups were scheduled, but in the moment it's stressful. So when you're there, it's such a whirlwind, like trying to keep your stress levels at ease, like, is very, very important as well.
Well, yeah, because a salesperson doesn't miss a meeting every day, and especially when they're trying to get there. So it's kind of a stress-raising experience. And to your point there, everyone wants to make sure they're making good use of everyone's time, and you really got to plan ahead for that. You have to be optimistic in how much you can take on, but not unrealistic on how close or the location. You really do got to be discerning about how you put that puzzle together.
For sure.
Look at a map before. I was like, I've been to Vegas before. It's fine. No, look at a map. Look at a map. See where the Win is. See where the Encore is. Like, look at where everything is at. And also, I would say, just make sure that you have a good idea. I mean, customers, partners, AWSers alike, having a good idea of what you want to get out of this is so important. We spent weeks prior to reInvent laying out what all of our meetings look like, what the desired outcomes are, and how we're going to follow up and how we're going to attack those. So I would just make sure that you have a game plan in place from start to finish. And that would probably be the most important thing coming out of it, along with staying hydrated, because it is dry in Vegas.
It is.
It's so dry.
I'm a Southern person. I can't do it. Anytime I'm out west, everything gets dry. I just can't do it. I'm used to this Georgia humidity. It's important, though, to be prepared going in. You mentioned the objectives there, and AWS reps work with customers to ensure there's good objectives, that there's things relevant to them that they're going to. But it's really incumbent on anyone from a partner to really think about, what are our business objectives for 2025, and how does the conversations that we're having today work towards that? How are we making sure we're having the right conversations? It's all, everyone's going to have a great time when they go to reInvent, but it costs a lot of money to do it. This is not necessarily a cheap little trip. So for anyone going, put a few dollars aside. Do recommend that. But because of that, you want to ensure there's a tangible value that you're trying to get out of that. So be prepared, have a plan, and water.
Yes. Water. Lots of water.
I'd say the last piece of advice I would give, I guess more so on the customer side, is there's just going to be so much information thrown at you at the, the different, parts of the conference that you're attending, and conversations you're having with partners, conversations you're having with your account manager at AWS. Bring a notebook. Don't bring your laptop, because it's just, you can bring your laptop if you want to, answer emails. But if that's like really going to be really hard on your shoulder or on your back, carrying that around, bring around a notebook and just take notes on what you think is most important, and then go back to those notes on the plane home or whatever the case is. Because there's going to be just so much information that you're probably not going to be able to remember everything. And I know like people typing on their phones, they don't want to look rude and type notes on their phone. So if you bring like a notebook, or even if you have like an iPad that like you like to use, I think that's always a smart option.
Yeah,
Definitely.
just something that's comfortable for you, that is ease of access, I would say. Anytime anyone's been to a trade show, conference, if you have a backpack and there's a billion things in there, anytime you need anything out of it, it's not fast, and everything about these events moves fast. So definitely try to think conveniently with your shoes, with your notebooks, with your water bottles. You know, it's a definitely think practical type of situation.
For sure.
But I mean, as far as it goes, it sounds like you guys learned a lot from your first reInvent. Also sounds like you've taken a few things there for the upcoming reInvent. Hopefully anyone who watches this can, you know, make sure they planned accordingly for their very first one. But thank you guys for coming on. I hope to have you guys on some more of these when we talk about some more topics related to our AWS partnership, because that is a big part of our business over here. As we talked about earlier, working with AWS, working with our other partners, that's really where we sit. And we have a lot of big plans for that here in 2025. So thanks so much, Maisha. Thanks so much, Shanna. And until next time, everybody.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys. Bye.